Hello, good morning, good afternoon. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are watching us on this live stream event, webinar organized by the CESNUR, the Center of Studies for New Religions and Human Rights Without Frontiers International. And the title is Real Justice, Real Independent Justice for the Taiji main case. Again, it's an honor for me to be the guest, the conductor of this webinar that we will have today. And to better start this program, before we go to give the floor to the experts and to the different witnesses or testimonies about these situations, I would like to introduce a video with a very touchy title. The title is Love. And this is a video that was created by the different DC of the Taiji men to basically send their love to somebody who had just gone through a very unjust situation based on their beliefs. So without further delay, please video in.
临近暗香为我们洗涤心灵，慈悲宽容为我们装点智慧，惜福感恩为我们慎重情根，这一切都是为了爱。
偏偏思境为我们倾诉思念，多多经典为我们献上真心，环环相扣为我们缘定今生，这一切都是为了爱，让心中的爱灌溉血汗交融的大地，散发出爱的芬芳，让心中的爱温暖血泪交织的生命，燃烧出爱的光芒。
回想当时这首歌的背景呢，应该是在太极门1219事件发生当年呢，那个国内发生好几件重大的社会悬案，就当时酝酿了所谓的宗教扫黑，在当时全国的各大宗教门派全部列入扫黑的对象，太极门也无端受到无妄之灾。在这一波当中，由违法滥权的检察官侯宽仁无端来起诉和收押师父。那在收押的期间呢，因为非常怀念师父，想念师父，那呢就发起了一个每人亲手编制一朵新莲，最后呢编成的总数呢达到16666朵。
在那一段风风雨雨的过程，其实我的心里都充满了不平与怨恨。为什么国家会这样对待我们？我们又没有干什么。然后你看家里亲戚这么多的误解，照道理讲，我就觉得我这个人对这个国家已经彻底失望了。但是呢，在这首曲子编出来，原来师父教我们的，潜藏在我的心里面，竟然是这份爱。
刑案判决无罪无罪了，可是税单并没有如财政部次长所说的跟着刑案而解决，甚至在民国99年，国税局联手及行政执行署要拍卖我们的会馆，也就是在那一年，我们第一次站上了凯道，把太极门案公诸于世，也正式揭开了法税的黑暗面。一路走来，我们用自己经历的痛，换出了更多原本只敢在角落默默哭泣的税灾户，也唤起了更多专家学者对于法治税制的制度面以及实务操作面缺失的注意，而投入了研究或者是发声。所以太极门案被称为法税照妖镜，而我们也从守护家园出发，走向了捍卫国家民主法治的道路。
从这个过程当中，我从师父这里学到了，就是我们不是只有爱自己，也要爱我们周围所有的人。
我学到就是要遵循良心，然后坚持做对的事情，
学会了更勇敢、更坚强，还有就是更广大的爱。
太极门始终坚持为爱勇敢。
我们真的很幸运，遇到一位名师。
那从86年3月《爱》的中文版出现之后呢，师父呢对于海外的弘扬呢已经箭在弦上，师父呢就只交代要用英文版来唱《爱》。那这个英文版的爱呢，让人家感受到原来中文版的爱呢是弟子一个诚心的、真心的思念师父的爱。思念师父，也要传达师父的爱和对世人的爱。那到第二个英文版的爱的时候，就完全都是把这个爱扩大展现了对世界的爱，真正来推动世界之爱的一个具体行动，在这首歌呢就展现出来了。这首歌的意义呢，就跳脱了中文版的爱的框架，又更扩大了。
师父依然带着弟子到世界各国弘扬爱与和平，总是教导弟子做利益众生的事。 便教导弟子每天感恩，为世人祈福。师父告诉我们，不能小看自己的一念之善，启动我们的善心善念，让我们帮助世界达到和平。谢谢师父。
Yes. Okay, so needless to say, this is a very touchy and emotional video that once again shows that regardless what people knows or do not know about the Taojimen, there is one thing very clear, is their willingness to express love to everyone and for everyone. And sadly, this is something not very common in this world today, where many look for their own interest and just their own. And this brings to not having real justice, to not having independent justice. To speak further on this issue, let me please introduce the first speaker of the program. He is the founder of the Center for Studies on New Religions and editor-in-chief of the magazine Bitter Winter, which is a magazine that continues to hit high levels of decision makers worldwide. And this is Dr. Massimo Introvigne. Thank you very much for attending and organizing this webinar. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Ivan. And today we commemorate an important date for Taiwan. January 11 is called, for those who are not Taiwanese, the Judicial Day, and it commemorates January 11, 1943, when the Republic of China entered into a new treaty with the United States and the United Kingdom, making its judicial system completely independent from any foreign jurisdiction. Indeed, independence is a key element of any legal jurisdiction. As long as it is dependent from other countries, a legal system is not fully established. It is true that in Europe and elsewhere, countries have decided that a portion of their independence may be surrendered to supranational jurisdictions, such as the European Court of Justice, the European Court of Human Rights, and the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, but they did it voluntarily and in an endeavor to reinforce rather than weakening their legal system. But the question is, what is exactly independence? And this theme was a concern for Prince Shotoku, a beloved figure in Japan. If you go to Japan, you find his real or perhaps imaginary portraits, because we don't have a very old portrait of Shotoku, on countless statues in the squares and paintings, and even on Japanese banknotes, which may seem strange because Shotoku was not an emperor. He was a regent for his aunt, Empress Suikyo, from 593 to 622 of the Christian era, but he became immensely popular. because he wrote the early constitution of Japan. And there is a controversy between scholars whether he wrote one constitution or 5 or even 6, because the authenticity of the ancient text is much debated. But this is not important for my purpose today. What is important is his notion of law and justice. Shotoku wrote what many consider the foundational texts for Japan. Perhaps using the word independence in the 7th century would be anachronistic, but Shotoku was very much quoted in the 19th and the 20th century as a symbol of Japanese identity. And he asserted the equal dignity of Japan in its dealings with a much bigger and powerful state, which was China. So even if he never used the word independence, we can see in his political activity an affirmation of independence. But what is interesting today for us, that at the same time, he insisted that the law and the enforcement of law cannot be absolutely independent. They should be independent from foreign powers, but they should not be independent from moral values and conscience. A key point of the text attributed to Shotoku is that if rulers and bureaucrats believe they are the owners rather than the servants of the law, then corruption will follow. And interestingly, corruption was already a problem in the 7th century, and the Shotoku writings define corruption as privileging the private interests over the public ones. Let me read one famous text attributed to Shotoku. It says that, quote, "To turn away from that which is private and to set our faces toward what is public, this is the path of a minister. But if a man is influenced by private motives, he will assuredly feel resentments. And if he is influenced by resentful feelings, he will assuredly fail to act harmoniously with others. If he fails to act harmoniously with others, he will assuredly sacrifice the public interest to his private feelings. When resentment arises, it interferes with order and it is subversive of law," end quote. Said in other words, and again, the legal system should be independent from foreign control, but should be dependent on morality, honesty, decency, and conscience. When those who enforce the law believe they can do it independently of any control by ethical principles and by their own conscience, they start to confuse the private with the public. And manipulating the public in the interest of the private is the very definition of corruption. While it is remembered for a vast program of promoting Buddhism in Japan, Shotoku understood that its advice to state ministers and officials was indebted to what he himself called the way of Confucius. And no doubt many similar texts can be found in the Chinese and the Confucian tradition. And wise advice, of course, may be the same in different language and traditions, and is appropriate for all time. The drama described in the text attributed to Shotoku, I quoted, is what we saw in Taiwan in the Taijimen case. A prosecutor and several tax bureaucrats were, as Shotoku said, influenced by private motives, and again, that's a Shotoku quote, sacrificed the public interest to their private feelings. And as Shotoku predicted, tragedy followed. But the Shotoku writings also indicate the solution. Although the words he used in the 7th century were obviously different from those of Dr. Hong and the Taiji men, in essence, they say the same thing. They invite to turn to conscience. This lesson of Shotoku remains valid today, and it's also the key to the solution of the Taiji men case. Those who turned away from conscience and the public good and allow their small private interest to rule should now turn to conscience and let the real interests of the law of Taiwan, of humanity, prevail. May this judicial day inspire thoughts and deeds of wisdom in those who have the power to solve the Taiji men case. Thank you. Ivan, you are mute.
Yes, now I'm good. Thank you, Massimo, for your very enlightening presentation. Now I'm not surprised anymore about all your knowledge, because every time I think there is something you don't know, you come there with knowledge about it. It's really incredible. So it's very good that people like you are making these cases known and full of comparison, so that people can really get an understanding of what is happening and potential ways of solving it. So thank you again. Our next speaker, he's a director in charge of Bitter Winter magazine. He has an incredible record of fighting for freedom of religion and belief, fighting for the rights of families. And he's another one that would very much enlighten us, giving enough comparisons and thoughts and questions about the subject. And his name is Mr. Marco Respinti. Marco, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Today, the Republic of China celebrates its Judicial Day, marking the day when, in 1943, Taiwan became independent from any foreign jurisdiction. This is a pivotal aspect of Taiwan, which is a bastion of freedom and democracy in an area of the world where freedom and democracy are a rare commodity. From August 26 to September 6, 1985, the United Nations held their 7th Congress on the Prevention of Crime and the Treatment of Offenders in my town, Milan, Italy. On the final day, September 6, 1985, that UN Congress adopted the text that all should read and study and constantly recall. It is called Basic Principles on the Independence of the Judiciary. On the Judicial Day of the Republic of China this year, let me share the first 2 articles of that important document. The first reads, quote, "The independence of the judiciary shall be guaranteed by the state and enshrined in the Constitution or the law of the country. It is the duty of all governmental and other institutions to respect and observe the independence of the judiciary." End of quote. The second article reads, quote, "The judiciary shall decide matters before them impartially, on the basis of facts and in accordance with the law, without any restriction, improper influences, inducements, pressures, threats, or interferences, direct or indirect, from any quarter or for any reason." End of quote. With these words, the United Nations teach and remind us that the state itself could regard the independence of the judiciary almost as sacred, and that the first single aim of the judicial system of a country is impartiality, i.e., the other name of justice itself. So far, at least 3 key words and concepts emerged from these introductory reflections. Not by chance, at least 2 of them are part of the title of our webinar today, the third being the direct and logic conclusion of them. The 3 words are independence, justice, and democracy. Independence and justice are the 2 words evoked in our title, and they lead to the third, democracy. Let me briefly explore them. Independence means to not being subject or subordinate to others. No people, no organization, no foreign state. Not even to churches and religious organizations. Of course, a believer is bound to the doctrine and morals upheld by the church or religious organization which he or she belongs to. But this never means that a church or a religious organization dictate every single act of a believer. It doesn't either mean that a believer should ignore the teachings and directions of the church or religious organization he or she belongs to. It means that a balance between obedience and autonomy, it is to be searched and possibly found. Here, the history of the Christian Middle Ages in the West is an important case study. It alternated at least 3 main attitudes. The temptation of theocracy, when the church pretended to impose its policy even to the political power. The danger of laicism, when the state regarded itself as separated and not only distinct from the church. And thirdly, the symphony between powers temporal and spiritual, which for the everyday man means to balance freedom and due respect for the authority. Of course, this third option is an ideal and much difficult to achieve durably. In sum, independence is not the despotic rule of an egoistic self, but the responsible self-government of a person's conscience, the sign of a true adult who is able to decide for himself or herself, as well as to take wise advice. The second concept and word I mentioned is justice. Contrary to what we generally may tend to think, justice is not an end. It is a means. It is not a goal in itself, but it serves a purpose. In fact, justice is a way to achieve good. The common good, or the good of all human beings living in a social and historical context, as well as what is good for the salvation of an individual. Good is the goal and justice the way to achieve it. So justice always discriminates, chooses, and rules in the name of the good. When it discriminates and chooses, not in the name of good, it rules arbitrarily and becomes its opposite, injustice. The Greek philosopher Aristotle eloquently addressed the nature of justice, defining it as the means to achieve the goal, which is the good. In his Nicomachean Ethics, he states that justice is not a matter of giving to everyone equally, but of giving to each person his or her own. This same concept entered Roman law and then served as the basis of modern legal practice in most of Europe. Aristotle implies that in order to treat human beings with equity, justice ought to make differences among them. The third concept and word is democracy. Many think that democracy is a type of political regime. It is not. According to classical political philosophy, originating again with Aristotle, 3 other forms of government: monarchy, or the rule of one sovereign; aristocracy, or the rule of the best people; and republic, or the rule of the many through elected representatives. Now, democracy is a description of the way by which these three forms of government govern. When, in one form or another, mediate or not, people participate in the political life of a nation, there is a democracy. All the three mentioned forms of government, monarchy, aristocracy, and republics, are democratic if, in one form or another, people are represented and can freely participate in the political life of a nation. If people cannot participate freely in the political life of a nation, tyranny substitutes monarchy. Oligarchy, as the rule of a few, comes in instead of the aristocracy of the best, and demagogy or the rule of a republic. The mark of these latter three forms of government is that they are not democratic. Monarchy, aristocracy, and republics can provide a good government for the people, as opposed to tyranny, oligarchy, and demagogy, because and if they rule over society to secure good, the common good of many and the individual good of each. To achieve this goal, all just forms of government must always act through justice, independently from all influence. This is why and how only independence and justice can grant true democracy. To say it differently, human beings can enjoy the liberties and beauties of true democracy only whether justice is independent or the judicial system of a country depend by no conditioning of any sort. The Taijimen case perfectly illustrates what I described so far. Taiwan is a democracy, but if its judicial system is conditioned by greed, ideology, corruption, and malevolence, Taiwan ceases to be a full democracy. If its judicial system is incapable to redress the wrongs done to its loyal citizens, as Taijimen, Gifu, or Grandmaster Rendisi or disciples are, Taiwan fails to represent full democracy. If Taiwan's system to secure justice is flawed because its independence from personal interests and malice is not granted, Taiwan's citizens like Taijimen, Gifu, and Disi suffer injustice. Sin and evil will never be eradicated from humanity, but human beings have the moral duty to tame and contain and battle sin as much as possible. Since politics is the art of governing people for the supreme goal that is good, let us hope that on Taiwan's Judicial Day, Taiwan's politics finds a way to regain its independence from the wrongdoings of some of its branches and corrupt officials, and consider the solution of the Taijimen case as its top priority. Only in this way, Taiwan's democracy will be full. Thank you.
Indeed, Dr. Respinti. Thank you very much for your presentation, for your many references that will help people further and better understand and sympathize with the case of the Taijimen. Our next speaker is someone you have to talk to if you want to be heard in Brussels. He's the director and founder of Human Rights Without Frontiers International, has a long career on protecting rights of minorities and majorities that have been under attack by oppressive people in governments or outside governments. His name is Mr. Willy Fautré. Willy, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ivan. First, I want to wish a happy, healthy, and prosperous New Year to all those who made this webinar possible, and also all the speakers and those who attend this event. And so it's now the second part of the webinar, which is usually devoted to the testimonies of the dizzy. But first of all, we will watch a video titled National Appeal, that appeal being abandoned taxation bonuses.
Today our topic is nationwide appeal, abandon taxation bonus, refund excessive tax revenue, reinforce financial discipline. These three are the hot topics and attracts attention from all citizens. First of all, let's take a look at the video of brief introduction of refund excessive tax revenue. The video was produced by Legal and Tax Reform in 2018.
What is excessive tax revenue? In a nutshell, the so-called excessive tax revenue refers to that the tax revenue the government collected is more than budget. Every year, each institution of government is required to prepare its budget and submit it to Legislative Yuan for approval. Thereafter, the government has to follow the approved budget to do their works. Ministry of Finance has to collect tax in accordance with its approved budget. When the tax collected is beyond the amount of approved budget, the part exceeding the budget forms excessive tax revenue. Oh, so the state earns a lot of money. Isn't it good? Of course it is good for commercial businesses to earn as much as possible. However, a state is not a profit-making entity. How could a government earn money from its citizens by collecting more tax? In fact, Taiwan is not the only nation/regime that has excessive tax revenue. Many countries/regime, such as USA, Macau, South Korea, Singapore, Hong Kong, all have excessive tax revenue. What different is that these countries all return these excessive tax revenues to their citizens. On the other hand, looking at Taiwan, despite all the callings from various sectors, the government refused to refund the excessive tax revenue. They said, now the government has a lot of debt and we are short of funding. So there is no reason to refund the excessive tax revenue. What? Hold on, the amount of excessive tax revenue is more than NT 500 billion. Let's ask, why the national debt level has not reduced? Where did the money go? Constructing many useless buildings? Mega bank scandal? Qingfu Shipbuilding Company scandal? The money wasted were shared among citizens. Why the government keeps ignoring the nationwide calling of refunding excessive tax revenue? The president had the version in 2008 and announced the propaganda refund excessive tax revenue, subsidy the weakness, with the initiative to return the excessive money to all citizens. Mr. Frank C.TC, the then member of Central Standing Committee of DPP, Democratic Progress Party, Mr. Ko Chien-ming, the chairman of caucus, and Mr. Lai Ching-te, the chief secretary, all agreed such initiatives. In addition, Mr. Sean C. Chen, the former president of Executive Yuan, Mr. Eric Chu, the former deputy president of Executive Yuan, Mr. Li Sushter, the former minister of finance, all mentioned that the excessive tax revenue should be refunded to the citizens. All the bosses expressed their opinions. Why the Ministry of Finance kept refusing the refund? Excessive tax revenue is neither an achievement or business target. However, the Ministry of Finance showed off by considering such excessive tax revenue as achievement. The tax revenues are coming from the citizens' hard money. The government should refund the excessive tax revenue to its citizens.
Facing economic slowdown and deteriorating real salary, how could the government still collect excessive tax revenue? The consecutive overcollection of tax is unusual because excessive tax revenue is not a norm. Even worse, the excessive tax revenue in Taiwan has been increasing for several years. How much the amount? Let's take a look at the statistics from legislators. Let's take a look at the figures of excessive tax revenue. NT 96 billion in 2017, NT 89.7 billion in 2018. The only year of shortage is 2020 due to COVID. Hence it is understandable a shortage of that year. However, the excessive tax revenue was NT 432.7 billion and the figure even goes up to estimated NT 450 billion for 2022. These are astonishing figures. No wonder everyone is curious about the financial discipline of the government. What wrong with the government? How they spent the money? Why there are excessive tax revenues for many years without sensible ground?
The excessive tax revenue is up to NT 450 billion. The general feeling is the government on one hand asks for extraordinary budget of NT 840 billion for spending, and on the other collects excessive tax of NT 450 billion for the excuse of repaying national debt.
You are saying that, at the same time, you are spending money and you want to repay the debt. However, the cumulated amount of excessive tax revenues is far less than the amount you spend in a year, i.e. the extraordinary budget. You also mentioned that the excessive tax revenue refers to the tax collected more than the budget amount. This also evidenced the ineffectiveness of governmental operation. Your budgeting practice is problematic, which is considered as an administrative mistake. You said the money is for repaying the debt. Is it true? Or the money just enters into the pocket of the government? How much is used for debt repayment? How much was spent recklessly? We citizens have no idea. When the citizens do not trust government, they would believe the NT 450 billion should be refunded.
Look, I use these few charts to explain. First, what approved by the legislative yuan is budget. The excessive tax revenue is another amount of money, which is not approved. Hence you cannot use the money at your own will. Secondly, the excessive tax revenue should be refunded. This is a nature rule. The government should only collect the tax in need, and should not collect more. This will form trust between citizens and government. Such excessive tax revenue not only happened in Taiwan. Many foreign countries the governments automatically refunded the money to their citizens. It is really a joke that in Taiwan we need a referendum to decide the refund. In addition, we mentioned national debt. Since 1987 to now, only 2 years we had no fiscal deficits. 2 years. This really made me wonder whether the government made any improvement with respect to the measures and tools of budgeting and estimation. Any review has been done? It is a general rumor that the over-collection is for the purpose of taxation bonus, for your performance.
I have accepted a lot of petitions since being the founder of Legal and Tax Reform Alliance. What I saw is discretionary over-collection of tax. National Taxation Bureau has the authority to order a corporate or a person to pay for additional tax with a discretionary tax invoice of NT 1 million or 2 million. What can an ordinary citizen do? We all have life. Tax officers can chase people around for taxation, but what could an ordinary citizen do with the tax invoices? Tax officers will conduct the review and an ordinary citizen could only surrender or compromise. It is very difficult for me, as the founder of Legal and Tax Reform Alliance, to fight against state, not mention an ordinary citizen. What he can do? He could only compromise. The situation of over-collection has become even worse. But the government refused to face the reality. Why? Because they would violate the article of the Criminal Code in relation to unauthorized collection of tax or duty, which imposes 1 to 7 years imprisonment. Hence the tax officers would not admit any wrongdoing. However, why they often issue discretionary tax invoices? Because they can get taxation bonus. Again, I would like to emphasize, this is the same as the proposal I mentioned in Citizen Platform in 2018. The taxation bonus is illegal and lack of any legal ground.
The total amount of excessive tax revenue has cumulated to NT 1,500 billion from 2014 to 2022. The amount equal to the total budget of the central government. Then we don't know how the money being spent. During President Tsai's term of office, beginning in 2017, not counting 2016, her excess levy is NT 1,120 billion. 1,120 billion will be returned to the people, with each person entitled to NT 48,000. NT 48,000.
Returning the excess levy to people has become the world's trend and people's consensus, right?
Right.
Excess levies must be transferred to the parliament for fiscal control. This is the most fundamental law-based administration. All over-collected or over-levied taxes, according to Articles 13 and 59 of the Budget Law, must be returned to the Treasury and cannot be voluntarily administered by the Ministry of Finance. The government stated that the excess levies will be used to repay the debt or to provide bonuses to local municipalities. All of these actions are wrong.
Wrong.
And illegal.
Illegal.
We saw a legislator ask the correct question a few days ago. These excess tax revenues can only be returned to the people.
Returned to the people.
Only the Parliament has the authority to review it.
The Parliament examines it.
The Ministry of Finance does not have the final say.
The Ministry of Finance does not have the final say. A small number of vicious tax officials randomly issued tax bills, which was also a result of this excess levies, and NT 130 million tax incentive bonuses were compiled in 1 year. For a long time, when many tax victims came to the Legal Tax Reform League, many of them have mentioned that the tax officials told them, if you pay the tax bill, I'll fine you 1 time, if you file a petition for administrative relief, I'll fine you 2 times or even 3 times. We must bring these legislators who support tax incentive bonuses to justice, right? The excess levies are people's money. What's returned to us is the universal justice, not a handout given by the government. The second tax incentive bonus is the source of corruption. We hope that in the legislative yuan behind us, there will be a few legislators who really care about people and will really investigate these tax collectors for their reckless tax billing. So that Taiwan's human rights can be put on the right track and Taiwan can be a truly democratic country.
The main purpose of our appeal in the Legislative Yuan is to call on members of the Legislative Yuan with conscience at the end of the year to expeditiously supervise the Ministry of Finance and abolish tax incentive bonuses, so that tax officials, financial officials and fiscal officials with conscience will not accept this dirty money.
Request for reimbursement of overtaxation.
Request for reimbursement of overtaxation.
Return NT 48,000 to me.
Return NT 48,000 to me.
Ask our country and our legislators to be the gatekeeper for the people.
Gatekeeper for the people.
Abolish tax incentive bonuses.
Abolish tax incentive bonuses.
Strictly comply with fiscal disciplines.
Strictly comply with fiscal disciplines.
Things coming back to the studio, I would say. Very impressive and very pedagogical document that explains very clearly what is at stake and what the objectives should be of the fight against those who abuse the tax system. It is unbelievable that when too many taxes are perceived, that they are not given back to the taxpayers if they are excessive. But unfortunately, this is the reality that Taiji Men and all of us are fighting against through this webinar and other actions. So this is the second session, as I said before the video. And before introducing the DZ and their testimonies, just a short introduction. As Massimo said earlier, the Judicial Day dates back to the 11th of January 1943. That was 6 years before the Communist Party took over on continental China. The then Republic of China recovered sovereignty of its judicial system through a treaty with the United States and the United Kingdom, putting an end to the extraterritoriality of their national judicial system in China. This historical day is particularly meaningful for all Chinese and provides an opportunity for bar associations, human rights NGOs, and all citizens in Taiwan to push their government for judicial reform. Along these lines, another anniversary was commemorated 2 weeks ago in the United Kingdom, the martyrdom of Thomas Becket, Archbishop of Canterbury 850 years ago. Thomas Becket was forced to forfeit all his property and flee the country because he decided to follow his conscience and dare defy the king in a matter that would have made the church subservient to the state. Years later, after the intervention of the Pope, Thomas Becket was allowed to return to England. However, he continued to obey his conscience and to resist the king's oppressive interference in church affairs. And finally, the king had had enough of Thomas Becket's defense of religious faith and reportedly exclaimed, and I quote, "Will no one rid me of this meddlesome priest?" unquote. This statement led to the assassination of Thomas Becket by Knights of the King in the famous cathedral of Canterbury. The fate of Taiji Men presents some similarities with the ordeal of Thomas Becket. Taiji also followed its conscience when the National Tax Administration started to persecute it in the early 1990s. The objective was to kill it financially, but believing in the rule of law, Taiji successfully challenged in the courts the state's attempts to force it to pay undue taxes and managed not only to survive, but also to prosper. Taiwanese citizens need safeguards against abuses of the law by the state, its administrations, and its public servants. This webinar also contributes to Taiji quest for justice for all. The case of Taiji highlights the need for reform in the Taiwanese judicial system, especially the administrative litigation system. Our first recommendation at Human Rights Without Frontiers is to annul the bonus system, as it creates incentives that can lead to undue fiscal and judicial harassment. Our second recommendation is to sanction those in state administrations and the judiciary who are found to be negligent or to have abused their power. So this was my introduction to the second part of the webinar. And the first speaker, the first Dizzy, is Yo-Yo Yuang, manager in the electronics industry. The floor is yours.
Hello. Hi, thank you very much. Hi. Hello, today is Taiwan's Judicial Day. Thank you to everyone who has come together on this important day to voice out in favor of justice, fairness, and human rights. As a Taijiman Dizi, I'm here to advocate for Taijiman case, which has not been resolved after 27 years. Prosecutor Ho Kuan-ren made an accusation against Taijiman's Sifu, his wife, and his Dizi 27 years ago, using fabricated witness and evidence. I'm grateful to the judges who took part in the first, second, and third trials in Taijiman case. On July 13, 2007, after 10 years and 3 months of work, they concluded that Taijiman was not guilty of tax evasion or violating the law. Taijiman was eventually served with justice. However, the National Taxation Bureau, along with administrative enforcement agency, ignored the court ruling and forcibly August off Taijiman's sacred land in Mary Mountain on August 21st, 2020. Anyone who hears this will most likely assume there is a problem. Let's go back to 1997, when Prosecutor Ho Kuan-ren turned the case over to the NTB before charging Taijiman. From 1991 to 1996, the NTB issued tax bill with large fine under guise of crime school. Nonetheless, it did not accept responsibility for investigating the nature of Taijiman to determine whether or not it is taxable. Taijiman, rather than being a crime school, is a manpai for Qigong, martial art, and self-cultivation. The Dizi follow ancient ritual of giving red envelope and gifts to Sifu, which are tax-free income and not taxable at all, according to Article 4, Section 1, Paragraph 17 of the Income Tax Act. Taijiman, therefore, filed an administrative remedy request to resolve these fictitious tax liabilities. The Ministry of Finance's Petition Committee then turned down the tax bill 5 times and asked the NTB to investigate the taxation nature of Taijiman. However, the NTB did not do so until 2002. The first survey form for a sample examination of Taijimen tax nature was delivered by Zhang Shenghe, Director General of the MTB of Taipei. In total, 206 survey forms were returned, each claiming to be a gift. However, Chen Dongliang, Li Yuyu, and Zhang Baiyou, as well as Xu Yuzhe, the Director General of the NTB of the Central Area, concealed these 200 survey forms beneficial to Taijimen. They also refused to provide these survey forms for review by the Petition Committee and the Administrative Court. When the case was appealed to the Taichung High Administrative Court, Judge Huang Suling stated unequivocally that she would invalidate this tax bill and expressed her desire that Taijimen case attorney not pursue the evidence any further. Who knows? The judge was unexpectedly repressed in the subsequent trial. Judge Huang Suling was transferred to the Supreme Administrative Court and repressed by Judge Xu Wufeng after Administrative Court relocated their judges. Instead of pursuing the NTB for the 206 concealed survey forms, he relied on criminal investigation transcripts that were not legally valid and ruled against Taijimen for 1992 tax bill, while ruling in favor of Taijimen for the other 4 years, resulting in the only spread decision in Democrat and the international judiciary, who two opposing decisions were made based on the same fact. The most perplexing situation is Judge Huang Suling, who was aware of unfairness of the case in administrative court, did not rescue herself when the case was appealed to the Supreme Administrative Court and extended against Taijimen. What happened to her after she changed the job? I'm hoping Huang Suling will make a statement and provide more information about this. The 1992 tax case was clearly handled incorrectly. This decision was made in 2006. However, because Taijimen case arose from a criminal investigation, it should be decided to be suspending the proceedings while awaiting the outcome of criminal verdict, in accordance to the principle of criminal precedence and the spirit of Article 177 of the Administrative Litigation Act. However, the Administrative Court made a quick decision before the criminal verdict was finalized. As a result, the Administrative Court made an error in its decision prior to the criminal verdict. As a result, one country, two systems, and one case, two verdicts have caused confusion. I work in electronic industry. The year of our product line is very important to us since it determines how much profit the company can make. Whenever a product has a problem, we have to debug it and identify the root cause. Is it caused by a poor product design, an issue with the product production process, or operator error? Then we will find the best way to resolve it and prevent it from happening again. Because of this work ethic, Taiwan electronic industry has produced numerous economic miracles. On the contrary, the administrative court in Taiwan does not have mechanism to debug and rescue the wrongdoing of the law. Finally, on the grounds of that, the incorrect verdict has res judicata. the NTB and the administrative enforcement agents arbitrarily seized Taiwan's secret land in Miaoli Mountain in 2020. Today, in Taiwan is Judicial Day. Looking back on the judicial prosecution of Taijimen case, on this day, honoring the independence of the Republic of China's judiciary, allows people to think more carefully about what goes wrong in Taiwan's court. Tens of thousands of families have suffered as a result of this case, which has haunted Taijimen's Sifu and Dizi for the past 27 years, and is still not unsolved. To transform Taiwan into a true beacon of democracy in Asia, I urge Taiwan government to investigate the Taijimen case and the resulting weak judicial system. Thank you all.
Yes, okay, to unmute. Yes, thank you very much, Yo-Yo Wang. As you rightly said, the judicial system is justice's last line of defense. But the question is, when the judicial system is flawed and the executive branch has control over the judiciary, how can the people's rights be upheld quickly and successfully, as in the Taijimen's case, sometimes described as, and I quote, a demon mirror of Taiwan's legal taxation, unquote. Indeed, demon mirror, tens of thousands of families have suffered as a result of this case, which has harmed Taijimen's Shifu and Dizi for the past 27 years and is still unresolved at this stage. The next speaker, Dizi, is Clement Kuo, a semiconductor engineer. The floor is yours.
Thank you and good day. Justice has always been an important component of a country's sustainable progress because it's defined the rule in a chaotic world, giving people a path to follow. As a result, in many countries, the judiciary is an independent unit with actual power and influence. As previous speakers say, today is Taiwan's Judicial Day. We respect the court because it protects ordinary people's lives and because we know that when our rights are violated, justice will be served, demonstrating the value of righteousness. However, in Taiwan today, the judiciary is in charge of civil, criminal, and administrative litigation, as well as civil servant discipline. However, it has not performed its duty, which is why the people of Taiwan generally lack faith in the judiciary and even jokingly refer to some judges as dinosaur judges. Judges who are out of date and whose decisions are at odds with social justice and righteousness. This is why some scholars refer to the Taijimen case as a diamond mirror of the legal text, because it reflects the arrogance of officials, the absurdity of the system, their precipitancy and laziness, and the government's inaction. The Taijimen case can be divided into two periods, criminal and tax. During the criminal phase, the the prosecution accused Taijimen of fraud, rising goblins, and tax evasion. This accusation alone would have shocked the entire judicial community. Illegal income is defined as fraud, and as such, it will be seized when legitimate income is not taxed. This is referred to as tax evasion. As a result, one income cannot be both legal and criminal at the same time. Irvin Schrödinger is a physicist, not a judge. Judicial cases do not allow quantum entanglement. In addition to the absurdity of the indictment in 2002, the Control Yuan found that the investigation of the Taijimen case by prosecutor Hou Kuanren involved 8 major violations of the law, many violations of the related provision of the Code of Criminal Procedure, seriously infringing on the right and interest of the defendant and damaging the image of the prosecutor impartial law enforcement, and refer the case to the Ministry of Justice for serious investigation and deliberation, and found that the indictment contradicted the evidence. Information and the indictment was not in accordance with the rule of evidence from the outset. In addition, the prosecutor has included the rising of goblins as one of Taijimen violations of the law, a matter that cannot be proven by scientific evidence. Fortunately, the criminal court spent 10 years and 3 months on a thorough trial, and on July 13, 2007, the 3 trial ruled that Taijimen is not guilty and no tax date in confirmed. There was no fraud, no tax evasion, and no violation of tax laws. All the incident defendants were also offered compensation for their wrongful imprisonment, proving their innocence once again. But Zhang Shumei, a government officer, used whiteout to alter official documents in order to enforce the action during this time, and the National Taxation Bureau (NTB) Director Zhang Shenghe agreed, resulting in the forfeiture of the Taijimen's property, despite Taijimen winning 18 administrative remedies. The NTB continued to issue tax bill. Finally, the NTB auctioned of the land designated for Taijimen practice site in a cruel and illegal manner. During the past 27 years, the NTB has violated human rights and harmed Taiwan by wasting countless public funds, administrative and judicial resources, and societal costs. The purpose of law is to protect the right of the people and maintain social order, whereas the purpose of taxation is to fulfill the public need and promote the social welfare. The promise of regulation and law enforcement should be reduce the incident of human rights violations and even to prevent the occurrence of wrongful and false case. And there should be clear penalties for public officials who make mistakes rather than using public officials' performance as the benchmark. Because performers can also be evaluated by law-breaking officials under the system of interest structure and protection of officials by officials. We should go back to the baseline of facing the law as the people do, instead of treating every citizen as a potential criminal target to legislate. Taking human rights as a starting point and conscience as the criterions of thinking, only then can we really establish a justice that the people can feel at ease and trust. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Clement Kuo. Thank you very much. And as you said, in Taiwan today, the judiciary is officially in charge of civil, criminal, administrative litigation, as well as the discipline of civil servants. But the judges, sometimes jokingly called dinosaur judges, are totally out of date, and their decisions are at odds with social justice and righteousness. This explains why the judiciary has not performed its duties and why the people of Taiwan generally lack faith in their judiciary. Thank you very much for your contribution. The next DZ is Chang Shun-ya, operating room clerk. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Junya. I am 25 years old and work in a hospital operating room. I am honored to participate in today's online forum of the Judicial Day. My parents have been bringing me to Taijimen to practice Qigong for as long as I can remember. In addition to practicing Qigong for health, we also follow my Shifu to spread the message of love and peace and positivity in different ways. In 2018, I was honored to follow my Shifu to India to participate in 19th International Conference of Chief Justice of the World, where we share with important people from all over the world about love and peace, conscience, and our slogan, "We can change the world." Everyone starts with themselves, and everyone can change the world by doing even the smallest things. One of the most important people who attended the meeting was the former president of Trinidad and Tobago. I remember that the other volunteers and I want to invite him to endorse the Declaration of Conscience. After listening to what we said, he was very happy and agreed to join the endorsement. He took out many bracelets from his pocket and gave them to me and other young volunteers. The bracelet has two sentences written on it: "Do the right things, do things right." He gave them to us and told us that is great that young people can do the right things. I was impressed with this experience because my Shifu told me to do the right things, just like messaging the former president was trying to tell us. When we were in India, we went to school and shared our slogan, "We can change the world," with students of all ages. At first, I wonder why my Shifu, Dr. Hong Dao, have taken us to India almost every year from 2007 until last year for the International Conference of Chief Justice of the World. After going there, I realized that every sort of the important guests, presidents and judges of various countries is enough to influence the whole country and society. And we were there to spread good thoughts and good intentions to everyone attending a conference, everyone attending a conference. Today is Judicial Day. Judicial Day began on January 11, 1943. China signed a new treaty of equality with the United States and United Kingdom. After the abolition of HRWF reality, China's judiciary was completely independent. Therefore, the government designed January 11 as Judicial Day. Justice is supposed to be the last line of defense for social justice. But in Taiwan, there is a case of human rights violation that has not yet been vindicated. The Taiji case caused by procedure 侯官人 illegal persecution. Although the Supreme Court ruled in the third trial on July 13, 2007, that Taiji was not guilty and did not own tax. The NTB has continued to issue illegal tax bills, despite the court's ruling suggesting Taiji to unequal treatment for over 27 years now, and forcibly auctioning of the land reserved for our practice on August 21, 2020. In the past 27 years, I seem to have grown up with the Taiji case. I have been on the street since I was 13 years old, in the name of tax justice and equal treatment of people in the tax system. When I was a student, I stood on the street with my parents. When I was in college, I stood in front of the presidential presses with my friends to defy justice. After I started working, I held signs on the street every day after work to make more people care about this issue. Many people say that young people are the hope of the future. As a young person, I would like to appeal to the Taiwan government. Taiwan is a free and democratic country, but more change are needed to achieve true democracy. The government must do the right things, do things right. We hope that the officials will share their conscience and courage to unite to correct the mistake and end the Taiji case, so that Taiwan can move towards a better future. Lastly, I would like to thank all of you who joined us today. We are all warriors of conscience, and we are united in this online forum for a better future of the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We can change the world. We can change the world by doing even the smallest things. This was the slogan of that conference in India that you attended in 2018 with your Shifu. And there you met the former president of Trinidad and Tobago, who gave you and the other Dizzy bracelets with the following words engraved: do the right thing, do things right. Exactly what your Shifu taught you and all the Dizzy to do in your life. Since the age of 13, you have put in practice the two slogans: doing small things like demonstrating on the streets or in front of the presidential palace, but the accumulation of such so-called small things can achieve great things. Small rivers make big rivers. And this is how I would conclude the short summary of your presentation. Thank you very much for it. The next Dizzy is Chen Dong-ron, an artist. The floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. I am an artist and I am very glad to participate in this webinar. Today, January 11th, is Justice Day, and what mood are we in to commemorate this holiday? According to media reports on December 16, 2022, a Democratic Progressive Party flag was unexpectedly hoisted from the flagpole on the top of the Taipei District Prosecutor's office at around 3 to 4 p.m. What is even more surprisingly is that most of the citizens smiled heartily at the scene and even praised the man who made a joke about the Democratic Progressive Party rather than condemning him. What does it mean? Though Taiwan has been implementing democracy and the rule of law for more than 70 years, the citizens still do not trust the judiciary. Despite Premier of Executive Yuan, Su Zhenchang said, "No one can interfere with the judiciary." It does not dispel the people's doubts about executive interference in the judiciary. I have personally been subjected to judicial persecution. The year 1996 was a milestone in Taiwan's democracy when the first ever direct presidential election was held. However, after the election, the government launched a religious crackdown on dissidents, and Taiji men was targeted for no reason. On December 19th, Prosecutor Ho Quan-jen abused his power to carry out a ruthless operation against Taiji men. I had just joined Taiji men for a year then, and I was confronted with the government's religious crackdown. Under the guise of religious crackdown, Prosecutor Ho Quan-jen commanded a large number of armed police officers, prosecutors and investigators along with medias to search the Taiji men academies in different parts of Taiwan. I happened to be in Miaoli Academy that afternoon and saw them rummage around without any clear evidence. And without any notice of summons, they demanded any of the brothers or sisters to go to the Miaoli Investigation Bureau to be investigated, and if no one volunteered, they would just arrest someone randomly. I was worried that they would arrest people indiscriminately, so I was forced to the Miaoli Investigation Bureau. While sitting in the police car, I felt so uneasy and couldn't help wondering how long I would be tortured. In the small room of the Investigation Bureau, several investigators took turns questioning me, which really put a great pressure on me. They kept asking questions they designed again and again, such as how did you join Taiji men? How much money did you pay? Have you been cheated? How much does a hat or a flag cost? They hoped that I would give them the answers they wanted. I told them these questions were not true, but because I didn't give them the answers they wanted, they took turns interrogating me and deliberately stalled for time. I was forced to answer their questions over and over again, and my mouth became so dry that all I wanted was water. It was a cold December day, but I was sweating all over, and I wasn't let go until after 7 p.m. It was a great insult to my life to think that I was innocent all my life, but I was tried for no reason without a summons. After 4 months of investigation, Prosecutor Ho Quan-jen charged Taiji men with fraud and tax evasion, and even included raising goblins in the indictment, which shocked the entire Taiwan society and caused public panic. Kenneth, a leading American human rights attorney and professor of law at Temple University in Philadelphia, has studied the Taiji men case for several years. In response to the Taiji men fake case, he said that to accuse a human being in a civilized society of raising goblins should cause individuals to question the sanity of the prosecutor. In any court of law, such an absurd allegation would be thrown out. It really shows how absurd this case is. After more than 10 years of trial, the Supreme Court finally ruled on July 13, 2007 that Taiji men was not guilty and did not owe any taxes. This verdict is like an imperial decree that the whole country must abide by, but the National Taxation Bureau, NTB, not only failed to comply with the judicial decisions, but continued to issue illegal tax bills that were invalid from the beginning and continued to persecute Taiji men Shifu and Diza. In addition to the verdict, the National Taxation Bureau also self-corrected the tax amount for 5 years, including 1991 and 1993 to 1996, to zero at the end of 2019. However, they left the 1992 tax bill based on the same nature uncorrected, and even used this fake tax bill to illegally auction off and nationalize the sacred land of Taiji men, in the Miaoli Mountains in 2020, which is intended for a self-cultivation center. The land was bought piece by piece by my Shifu before the 1219 incident for building the Taiji Villa. It is a convenient site for brothers and sisters, from the north and south to come practice Qigong. Not to mention that the laws of Taiwan and the Convention on Public Administration also stipulate that the monasteries cannot be seized and auctioned. It is distressing to see that the National Taxation Bureau and the Administrative Enforcement Agency have acted in such a perverse manner. Justice Day symbolizes the end of the suffering of Chinese people. On January 11, 1943, our government signed a new Treaty of Equality with the United States and the United Kingdom and others, ending many unequal treaties signed with foreign countries during the Qing dynasty, and abolishing extraterritoriality, symbolizing the complete independence of our judiciary. However, the meaning of Justice Day should not only remain in history, but it should allow the people to truly enjoy judicial independence and uphold justice. In his speech at the 61st Judicial Day, former president of the Judicial Yuan, Mr. Wang Yuesheng, said, "The various judicial reforms implemented by the Judicial Yuan are all based on the concept of justice for the people. That's because only when justice meets the expectations of society can it gain the trust of the people, and then play the role of protecting human rights so that the meaning of judicial reform can be more significant." However, the persecution of the Taiji Men fake case is now in its 27th year. It is regrettable to find that the judicial practice in Taiwan is still stuck in the mindset of the authoritarian era, which is used to control and even intimidate the people, rather than to uphold justice. This kind of complicity structure of using public power to form a party for personal gain has set back Taiwan's democracy. As long as they do not stop their misdeeds, there will be more people suffering. For the sake of true freedom, democracy, and the rule of law in our beloved country, we must all join together to monitor the government's administration and reject state tax violence. We hope that those in power can put the people first, follow the law, administer with conscience, and vindicate all unjust tax cases, so that our beloved Taiwan will become a country with true democracy, freedom and the rule of law, and Judicial Day will be a day to celebrate the true independence of the judiciary. Thank you for your time.
Okay, unmute. Thank you very much, Shen Dongrong. It was interesting to listen to your testimony, as you were personally targeted by the December 1996 police crackdown. You had been a dizzy for just about 1 year when you were arrested in the Mia Oli Academy, put in a police car, pushed in the police car, I would even say, and taken to the police station for interrogation. That must have been difficult times for you as a very young dizzy. And then for hours, you were confronted to several interrogators who violated your privacy and your conscience with very, very intrusive questions about your spiritual practices, which is unacceptable. So now we will listen to the next and last dizzy today, Irene Tang, college students. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Hello, I'm Irene Tang, a Taijimen弟子, and I have been practicing Qigong and cultivate myself with my parents at Taijimen since I was a child. In addition to my physical and mental improvement, I also learned from my Shifu, Dr. Hong Dao, the art of discipline and manners and the ways of thinking positively. Therefore, whenever I encounter difficulties, my first thoughts will be to consider how to face the difficulty, and then I will try my best to solve it. And from which I found my own shortcomings and failures. My Shifu not only helped his弟子to get better and better, but he also cared about the whole country and the world. He has dedicated himself to promoting a culture of love and peace with conscience, and to promoting the physical, mental, and spiritual health of all citizens. For decades, Shifu has led his弟子 to visit 101 mansions on 5 continents to conduct cultural exchange, and has made many people realize the value of cultures and won international acclaim as well. And in my senior years of high school, the year before the pandemic outbreak, I was very grateful to have the opportunity to travel to India with my shifu for culture exchange. I have seen my father travel to various countries for culture exchange with shifu since I was little. So I always hope that one day I will be able to travel abroad to do something meaningful like them. And despite encountering matters challenge, I ultimately overcome them and went to India with Shifu to attend the 20th International Conference of Chief Justice of the World and conduct the cultural exchange with students at the Montessori schools in India. At first, I couldn't help wondering how many people I could possibly affect by doing this when there are so many people in India. But when I came in touch with them, I felt that we were living seeds of love and peace in their heart of those students, instructors, and judges, which might help them awake their conscience, and in the future, they could influence more people and even the future of their nation. When communication with people from various nations, even if we didn't speak the same language, a sincere look and a genuine smile could also spread the seeds of love, and it made me feel that the world will really become a better place. And the International Conference of Chief Justice of the World and Global Awareness Seminars is an announced event held in Lucknow, India. And every year, influential people from all around the world are invited to attend the conference. Dr. Jagdish Gandhi, founder of the Montessori School of India and recipient of the 2002 UNESCO Peace Education Award, respects my shifu, Dr. Hong Daozi, award and achieves for his lifelong dedicated to promoting love and peace and building global integration. Therefore, my shifu was awarded the Nobel Mahatma Gandhi Award by Dr. Jagdish Gandhi in 2010. And there are only 3 winners of the Mahatma Gandhi Award in the 11 years since its establishment. And Dr. Hong Daozi is the first one in Taiwan to receive this award. And I also had many firsts in my life at Taijimen, such as the first time to perform in front of a large crowd, the first time to go to Taipei at midnight by myself, and the first time to travel abroad without my family, the first time to give a speech on the street, and so on. And many of my firsts in life have achieved here at Taijimen. And I grow to be metro here, and Taijimen is like a big family to me. However, such a good place is treated unlawfully by the administrative agencies. Prosecutor Hou Panren slandered Taijimen as fraud and tax evasion, and even wrote about raising goblets in his indictment, which completely violates scientific evidence. And Taiwan suddenly became a ghost island, a joke to the international community. And we were forced to take to the street to practice our own homes and defend our human rights. The Supreme Court ruled in the 3rd instance that Taijimen was not guilty of tax evasion or any charge. Taijimen was also determined to be a menpai of Qigong and martial arts by the Supreme Executive Court. However, the Taijimen case was still unable to be received. The National Taxation Bureau continued to issue illegally tax bills based on the unreasonable indictment, and went ever further by joining force with the Administrative Enforcement Agency to illegal auctions of the preserved land for a self-cultivation center and took it into state ownership. This case has attracted a lot of attention from experts and scholars at home and abroad, and has been widely reported and highly discussed in international media outlets. This case is a demo reflections mirrors of judiciary and tax law, which has exposed the dark sides of tax law to the world. And it is also one of the major cases of religious freedoms, persecutions that has attracted international attention. So since I was a child, I have been taught that the purpose of study is to learn how to behave and do things right, to have courage to admit mistake when doing something wrong, and to do the right things in all walks of life with conscience after growing up. And I hope that those officials in power will have the courage to admit their mistake and awake their conscience. And I hope that on this Memorial Day, Justice Day, the government will re-examine the problems and deficiencies in Taiwan's judicial systems and administrative actions, and utilize law as a starting point to transform Taiwan into a true treasure island. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Irene Tang. As you said, since you were a child, you've been taught that studying is for learning how to act and acknowledging mistakes while doing incorrect things. And since then, you have tried to follow your conscience in all parts of your life, and you expect that members of the government and staff of state institutions do the same. And today, on UN Judicial Day, you call upon the government to re-examine the mistakes and deficiencies in Taiwan's judicial system and administrations in the light of their conscience. Let's hope that your call will reach their conscience and will be followed by concrete actions. Thank you very much. And this was the testimony of the last DC. I will now give back the floor or the leadership or the baton or the mic, whatever we can call it, to Ivan Arjona to introduce the next and last speaker.
Yes, sorry. So it has been, thank you very much, Willy, and to all the DCs for all your amazing stories and explanations coming very obviously from your heart. And this is important to reach people with the message, that the message comes from you, from your knowledge, from what you have experienced, and in the way that you see things that are happening. So our next speaker, which will be the one giving the conclusions, he is the president of the European Federation for Freedom of Belief, an organization based in Italy, UK, but that actually moves all over the world, making events at OSCE, UN, European Parliament, and around. He is a practicing lawyer, a very good one. Please, the floor is yours, Mr. Alessandro Amicarelli.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much, Ivan, for your introduction. And thank you, everyone, for your lovely speeches and presentations on the different perspectives relating to the Taijimen case as we celebrate justice today, something which Taiwan as a country has been struggling for very long time, and something for which Taijimen has been struggling for a long time. In fact, Taijimen is fighting a long-term a battle for justice, for freedom, and for peace for every Taiwanese and for Taiwan as a whole country. Albert Einstein said that striving for social justice is the most valuable thing to do in life. And certainly this is what Taijimen and the thesis are doing and promoting with the support of and inspiration from the Shifu, Dr. Ong Tao Zi. I met Dr. Hong. It was a great pleasure to meet him, and I had a chance to talk with a number of members of Taijimen, and talking with all of you and all of them about what you all have been going through is very important to understand what happened to Taijimen and why it's important to work all together as we keep doing now. In his presentation, Marco Respinti said, justice is not an end, but a means. Justice is a way to achieve good, the common good, or the good of all human beings living in a social and historical context, as well as what is good for an individual for his or her salvation. So good is the goal and justice the way to achieve it. In this regard, we can see that the realization of justice for Taijimen can be a means for Taiwan to improve and step forward towards a fully democratic system, this being the good for Taiwan. In his speech, Massimo Introvigne recalled that independence is a key element of any legal jurisdiction. The law and its enforcement cannot be absolutely independent. Although they should not be dependent on foreign powers, they should be dependent on moral values and conscience. In this regard, I want to read a short excerpt from an article written in 1937 on the Catholic journal Blackfriars by Hilary J. Carpenter. This scholar, in the article called Law and Conscience, said, "In the ideal state of things, conscience and law are coincident. It is true that one is subjective and the other is objective, but there is an essential interdependence between them. As a result of subjectivism in religion and in philosophy, the link between them has been broken. Conscience has become almost entirely subjective in the narrow sense of the word, law almost entirely objective and formalistic. The former, conscience, has thus tended to have less and less moral force, while the latter, the law, has become more and more atrophied, meaning disconnected from conscience. Without one or the other, a man finds himself in a tragic state." And indeed, we can see that the world is presently in a tragic state, as also the testimonies of the theses have shown today, and something to which we will never get used enough, as they really give us the clear picture of what has happened and is still happening in Taiwan in relation to Taijimen. The Swiss philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau said, "Liberty is a requirement for justice." And German philosopher Immanuel Kant said, "Justice is a requirement for liberty." Indeed, justice and freedom are essential, vital principles, and there can be no freedom without justice and no justice without freedom. As law and conscience are interdependent, and as justice and liberty are interdependent, likewise, love and peace are interdependent. There can be no peace in Taiwan or elsewhere if there is no love. And love is the key for the establishment of peace in Taiwan and in the world. Love is not just a theoretical principle. Love, in fact, is the opposite of hatred, the war being the personification of hatred. Some corrupted officials in Taiwan started a war against Taizhimen in 1996. The war against Taizhimen is the denial or absence of love. A war that denied conscience and that suppressed liberty and justice for Taizhimen and for Taiwan. The suppressive behavior of a public prosecutor accusing Taizhimen of raising goblins, something which has been recalled also during the testimonies today, and making up a number of fake allegations was the self-manifested proof that public officials, some of them, of course, had looked into their private interest only. They looked into their careers instead of looking at the public interest, a concept which Massimo Introvigne has recalled in his speech about the Japanese Prince Shotoku and the problems relating to corruption in the society. Massimo recalled that a key point of the texts attributed to Shotoku, is that if rulers and bureaucrats believe they are the owners rather than the servants of the law, corruption will follow. The case of Taizhimen has shown that some officials believe that they stand above the law instead of being servants of the law. This has encouraged corruption and the denial of justice and peace for Taizhimen and for Taiwan. Taizhimen has fought a 27-year battle to re-establish justice in Taiwan for Taizhimen and for all Taiwanese. As friends of Taiwan and of Taizhimen, we stand for the abolishing of the bonus system in Taiwan, as Willy Fautré recalled in his own statement, to erase corruption and to establish a system sustained by the respect for liberty, justice, based on the sacred principles of conscience and morals, principles which are very well present in the Asian culture and tradition. Peace in the world can be a reality if we all do our best for it and work together to that end. The last DC Irene said, "The world will truly become a better place." And I will now quote Michael Jackson, who in his song said, "Heal the world, make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race." We will keep supporting Taizhimen until justice prevails, reaching the good being the end, as Markel said. Taiwan, the good for Taizhimen, for Taiwan, and for the world. Let's heal the world all together. Thank you for your attention.
So thank you very much, Dr. Amicarelli. Well, I believe this is it for this webinar. I don't know if any of the speakers has anything to say or the organizers before we close. So thanks again and see you in our next webinars.
I believe there is a final video.
Yes, it's true. It's true. I just missed it. Oh, yes, of course. Sorry for the mistake. So the next video is a video that was created with messages for the World Prayer Day. And it's actually a very short but fantastic and touching videoing.
口青天满开，抚慰众生灵。
There is positive energy in the universe. True love never ends. May the earth last forever. May the world be peaceful.
Who's calling when I wake up in the morning? I hear the wind blowing, I hear birds singing, but I can't hear the voice of my heart. Who's calling when I lay down in the evening? I hear the clock ticking, I hear the insects chirping, but I can't hear the voice of my heart.
This is a critical moment. I now proclaim October 16th of each year as World Prayer Day.
Excellent. Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you very much for everything. To
Yeah.
all the speakers, the attendees. It was
When
lovely to
when
be
is the
here.
next webinar?
I'll tell you because it has been slightly